everyone, Draco Magnius here for another episode of Nier Weapon Stories. This time we're covering the Labyrinth Set, a set of 3 weapons all related to labyrinths and the Minotaur of Greek mythology and design. The stories are not technically connected to one another, but I'm going to be reading them in the order Labyrinth Song, Labyrinth Whisper, and Labyrinth Shout, because it kind of makes it seem like the first 2 stories are related if I read them that way, and the last one's just a tacked on story. Like, I don't think any of them are related to each other, but I'm reading them this way because it just seems better narratively. But without further ado, let us get to summoning. The beast lived in the depths of the caves. Huge horns, steel-like body, heated breath. The peace-loving villagers hated this monster that had a cow's head and a human's body. They were afraid. Somewhere down the road, the monster came to be known as Minotauros of the Labyrinth. Belying its scary appearance, the monster was very gentle. It never killed other living beings, and it took extra care not to step on flowers with its boneless toes. It lived inside the caves to reassure the villagers' fear as best it could. One day, a girl wandered into the depths of the cave. The girl saw the monster and began screaming and crying, eventually losing consciousness due to fatigue. The monster was troubled. "What should I do? What should I do? I have to send this child back to her village. Her father and mother must be worried. I have to send her back." In the morning, 2 days after the girl's disappearance, she was found unconscious in front of her worried family's house. She suffered no wounds and was merely sleeping. Her mother ran towards her, but let out a small scream at the sight of something. The monster's corpse lay a little distance away. Its corpse was impaled by numerous swords, and blood splattered all over the place in a sinister manner. However, there were no signs indicating that it attacked the girl. Not only that, it seemed like it wanted her to be away from it, almost as if it didn't want to stain the girl with its blood. The monster curled up on itself and died, almost as if it didn't want to scare the girl. The girl had 2 huge horns. They were a bit above her ears, and they looked like those of a cow. I saw the root of her horns once. Looked like something that grew out of her skull. Of course, only she was like that. Everyone else was normal. The kid with the horns was small when she was born. Her horns. Well, of course. If she had those huge horns, she wasn't going to be able to come out of her mom's belly. You thought she would be bullied, didn't you? Then you're completely wrong. That child was stronger than anyone in the village. There were no males that could win against that kid. She did all the work that required brute force, and whenever shades attacked the village, she was always the first to fight them. More than that, everyone loved her. She was bright and strong, but the shade that attacked one day was strong. The village men were tossed around like rags, and half of them were dead. She with the horns fought as hard as she could, but even she exhausted her power. At last, the shade took her body and ripped her horns off. Her scream back then was really something. It was a sound that shook the ground. When everything settled, I went out of my house and saw both she and the shade died. Both were bleeding from countless holes to their bodies. They, how should I put it, were beautiful, like bright red flowers. Even though that's a pretty insensitive comment, that's the answer to your first question. Why nobody in this village can hear anything. But I want you to know, none of us blame her. It's much better than being dead. We confirmed with each other in the aftermath, but her last shout seemed to be goodbye. I'm proud that the last sounds we ever heard were her words of parting. Really. That woman was unbelievably dim-witted. She was unskilled and would take 3 times longer than the average person at doing anything. She walks slowly, talks slowly, blinks slowly, and can't even accomplish the simple task of taking water from the well. Even when called cow by the children and laughed at, she could only laugh back. That woman was unbelievably dull. Even when she fell and blood was spilled, she acted like nothing has happened. She dropped money all the time, but never tried to take them back. Even when someone badmouthed her right in front of her, It'd take her at least half a day to realize what happened. When the children saw the woman, they happily threw rocks at her. The woman was unbelievably foolish. During the summer, when the village suffered from the sunlight, she disappeared somewhere by herself. All the children died from starvation. The villagers did not think about the escaping woman. After 2 days or so, rain fell upon the village and provided salvation. Yet the woman did not come back. And 20 days after the woman ceased to return, a priest came to the village. The priest held in his hand a spear with horns. The spear was sticky to grasp due to the oil. The spear was too heavy and wasn't practical to use. The spear could not pierce through anything when used, and the priest forcibly left the spear to the villagers. But they found it creepy, and none came close to it. The spear was not used by anyone, and it slumbers even now in the corner of the village.